Hi. I'll have the number 11, but if you could, hold the phone.
Cool. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. We're here with author Lynn Taylor. You
Hi.
know, so you and I plan to do a podcast. Just so we had done an author podcast,
Yes.
and we were talking about like, you know what? Let's get on a podcast, talk about theology, philosophy, and
Mhm.
we have absolutely no plan here whatsoever. So we are just going to go with whatever is inspiring us, whatever's calling us right now, and I think it will be productive and interesting. But
Yeah.
it's totally going to be free form right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably
I'm
jump
just make
around.
sure I got the right view here. Okay, I'll tell you one thing that's been on my mind lately.
Okay.
Okay, so I know a couple Christians, very good people, who feel as if they might be bad Christians if they don't take every single thing in the Bible literally, but
Hmm.
also they feel guilty if they look at other cultures that like yoga is off limits and meditation is off limits because they come from Buddhism and Hinduism and Ayurvedic medicine,
Right.
and like you're a bad Christian if you even look at these things and explore them. Do you have, is that something you've noticed at all, or do you have any thoughts on that whatsoever?
So I actually had my husband and I are watching The Chosen, the show, and I actually had this like epiphany while I was watching it. Because they really do try to tie it into the Bible as much as possible, and the
Right.
the man who played Jesus is wonderful. And I don't remember exactly where the epiphany came from, but basically there was a few things I was like, the Bible has changed so many times and it's been touched by so many people that I don't
Mm.
know really what specifically word for word in the Bible has been adjusted to freak people out versus what was actually said by Jesus. Because half the time in the show, he's like, I didn't say that, or I didn't say it in that way. Like the Pharisees are being very particular, and he's like,
Mm.
no, not like that.
I've heard a lot of different, like the same passage, the way it's really meant, like in Greek versus in English.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
there's like, you know, sometimes, I mean, like the Greeks have what, six different words for love, and
Hmm.
we just have love, right? I mean, like sometimes part of the issue can be like even this idea, and Dr. Jordan Peterson was talking about this, like the meek shall inherit the earth. And we think of meek as like timid, but the
Right,
original translation might be more like those who have swords but keep them sheathed or something like this. That it's
right.
like those who are capable of violence but choose peace instead versus those who are afraid, timid, lowly. And those are very different things. I mean, they may appear the same way, but from like an intention standpoint, very different ideas entirely. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And because I've been in the church for so long, I've
Mm-hmm.
heard so many pastors really say like they'll take a sick one scripture sentence and they'll really dissect each word. But
Mm-hmm.
the way they dissect it is the English now language of how we would say that versus what it
Right.
probably actually meant back in the day. And so people take
Right.
that as for per word as it is now versus no, he didn't really mean it that way, but we don't really
Right.
know.
One thing I think about a lot, and this is another one from Dr. Jordan Peterson. I know he's a controversial figure, but very smart guy, very interesting content. But one of these things is the story of Jacob, where you know he wrestles with God's angel all night, and then he actually wins the wrestling match, but breaks a hip in doing so. But then he's
Mhm.
renamed Israel, and Israel means those who wrestle with God. And I take that to mean that God's chosen people are the ones who really think about it, like
Yeah,
the ones who wrestle with like what does this scripture mean, and this
yeah.
is challenging me and this is difficult and I'm trying to understand it at deeper levels, and sometimes I don't know, I don't even know if I agree, and sometimes I got to think about it more, spend an entire
Hmm.
lifetime versus to just say, you know, this is it, there's nothing left to think about.
Right.
So I, but that makes me more comfortable, right? Because I do wrestle with, I don't wrestle with God existing, but I do wrestle with like what are the rules, right? Like
Yeah.
I've had a very blessed life, but I know that people suffer every day. A lot of times at the hands of other people, and I know that people have free will, and I know that that
Mhm.
free will allows people to harm you. But
Right.
like it's one of these things where like, you know, I have I've had a great life, but I don't always have faith that that luck is going to keep going, or something terrible won't happen, or you know this kind of thing. So I do wrestle frequently.
Yeah, I mean, I wrestle even just the philosophy of some stuff, especially going through the Chosen show where
Mm,
they would mention something, and then afterwards I'm sitting there pondering it, like, okay, I've read the Bible and I'm listening to what this show said, and I'm kind of tying the two together, and then in my head, me and God are having this conversation, or at least I'm
mm-hmm.
trying to work through what does this mean for us or people or humanity or any whatever the subject was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wrestle with him in that way where I'm kind of like, can you explain this to me? Or like, can I kind of work through this in my head a little bit more
Right.
so I can understand it?
But I wonder if we're supposed to, right? Like if God is like a parent and you're kind of married, and I use marriage in terms of like the dynamic with a spouse where you're like, this is like a spouse is someone you wrestle with who
Mhm.
in wrestling it makes you better and you grow tremendously and you do tremendous things together. But
Right.
like there are difficulties and things. And I don't my brother said something the other day that was ridiculous. He thought as a Catholic that your faith is mediated through your priest. Like you talk to the priest and almost like the priest talks to God on your behalf. And I'm like, don't put limits on God. Like the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit was a promise. And like you think the God who made all of this can't care about you and everyone else at the same time. And that like,
Right.
oh, we're gonna mediate this through other people, even though all human beings are deeply flawed. Um, Someone's trying to be a co-host. I'm gonna say decline, no offense, but I'm in the middle of a podcast here. Um, but yeah, I thought that was crazy, right? I was like, I think every single human being should have a personal relationship with God.
Hmm.
And like that's not to say you shouldn't be part of a church. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have a priest or a pastor or some kind of spiritual mentor. You should
Right.
certainly never put a human being on a pedestal because like you
Hmm.
will only be let down if you do that. But I think at the end of the day, like you've got the Holy Spirit inside you and you're meant to, right? Like you're meant to have this little angel on your shoulder that guides you when the little devil is trying to
Yeah.
make you do this and that or the other thing.
Yeah. No, I'm not to make a plug, but the Light of Mine book that I have, that one is where there is a single mom who hasn't been in the church and then a friend
Mm-hmm.
who has been in the church. And so she tries out different churches and runs into a lot of different things because people are people. And
Mm-hmm.
there's negative and positive in the church. And really, what it comes down to is you want that relationship with God, which she ends up getting, spoiler alert. Um, but you want that relationship with God no matter what. And then the church and the people are resources and tools to help kind of guide you there, especially if you can't really sit down and meditate and hear the voice of God. You
Mm-hmm.
can talk to a pastor or a priest and kind of ask the questions to them.
Yeah, no, you're welcome to plug that book too. So Lynn is an amazing author, and everyone who's like looked at your books, every video I've seen, they've all been tremendous. So like I know you put a whole lot of thought. You're a very, very deep thinking person, which is why we're here. But yeah, that book in particular. And what was the title again, if you could remind me?
Light of Mine.
Light of Mine. Yeah, we're gonna put all your links in the description because your books are like near and dear. Like you're definitely a kindred spirit. And I think we obviously write different things because we have different stories and that's the way God intended it. But in terms of like what you want to do with your writing and the way you're inspired, you and I both try to explore things at a deeper level. And there are things that
Yeah.
we're wrestling with, there are things we're coming to understand, things we're struggling with, or whatever it may be. And I no, I certainly can appreciate your writing in a big way.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I appreciate yours too.
yeah, no, thank you, thank you. One of these things that's been on my mind lately is people feeling the need that like everything in the Bible has to be literal. And I actually have concluded like it almost doesn't matter whether they're literal or not, but if you only take them to be literal, you might actually miss the bigger point in a lot of
Mhm.
stories. Like when Jesus says, and I've been thinking about this lately because I've been getting into like meditation and personal hypnosis, and it's like you have this whole unconscious mind you're trying to shift, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus says you can't put new wine into old wine skins. And like if we're taking the Bible literally, we meant to think like, oh, Jesus is giving a literal lesson on being a sommelier, and like that's like I came to Earth to teach y'all how to make the finest wine, and it's
Right.
like you're missing the point here. It's like no, you can't put new ideas into an old body, which is why like people fall off of diets and people fall off their New Year's resolutions. It's like we're trying to throw a couple new ideas into a bunch of old patterns. And he
Yeah.
was trying to explain like that doesn't work. And we're like, oh wait, 2,000 years later, we're like, oh, he was onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Like, well, so here's the other thing too, is that your stories, this kind of ties into what you were just saying, plus this, your stories, I feel like hit a more philosophical kind of like tales and fables, and you can
Yeah.
take things out, how it applies to you. And I feel like that's how the Bible is too.
Mm.
And so for like, well, as you were talking about the skin, or I'm sorry, the wine skin and the wine, I was thinking on a psychological level, because that's usually where
Mm.
I go with my books. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about you can't put in new thoughts, which is kind of what you were saying too. But you can't bring in anything new if you're not able to let go of the old, like the past, the traumas, all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
you can't bring in anything new because you're full up of the old wine.
Right. It's like if 90, it's like, I think of it, I almost had a dream about this. That I was like trying to change myself by like throwing a tennis ball at a brick wall repeatedly.
Mm,
And I'm
yeah.
like, God, I can't make this thing crumble. And it's like 95% of you is your subconscious mind, which who knows what that is? It might be a series of patterns. It might be all kinds of things your parent taught you, genetics, cultural, environmental, but like the majority of you is this giant brick wall,
Yeah.
and you're trying to introduce new ideas and they're like not getting through the wall. And that's
Right.
like putting new wine into old skins. And it was like the old skins are just going to ruin the new wine. It's not that the new wine is going to renew the old skins and make them now restored.
Yeah.
um so there is a question of like what to do about that kind of thing. And um I'm leaning, I still don't totally know the answer to that. There's, I think repetition is probably the biggest thing, right? Like whatever it is, being very conscious with your thoughts, with your speech, being very, very careful in the stories you tell yourself and about the world,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
essential, like unconscious behavior is what's going to lead you astray.
I was just gonna say, what if the brick wall is your societal limits? Because I feel like that,
Mm.
especially with the recent tragedy I had, I lost somebody for the people
Yeah.
who don't know. Um, but that's kind of something that I've been thinking about because this person took their life, and so it's a different kind of death to process. And looking at it, I feel like they were stuck at that wall. They weren't
Mm.
looking past the rat race and the try not to make them sound selfish, but like they were kind of looking at all their things instead of looking past at everything else around them. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people I see do that where they're stuck at that wall that they
Mm.
don't see everything else in front of them. And it's kind of a pity party, woe is me, and they're just stuck in this little bubble. Um,
Yeah.
and that's where they're sitting there with the tennis ball. They're just chucking it, trying to see if they can break out.
It's like even worse. They're like almost boxed in by the brick wall, and like the tennis
Yeah.
ball just keeps bouncing off the walls and coming back at them. And I could see people getting into. And first of all, I'm sorry for your loss, and
Thank you.
it happens much more than it should.
Hmm.
And you know, society, we've got all kinds of pills, we've got all kinds of plans, but like we are not addressing why do people feel this way? Why is it so normal now that everyone is medicated? Everyone's
Right.
got an autoimmune, everyone's unhappy, everyone's going to get Alzheimer's or cancer or heart disease. And we act like these are all perfectly normal things. And there is
Yeah.
something enormous we're missing. And I think there's a nutrition thing on the one hand, but on the other hand, I think there is this death of God thing. Like what Nietzsche said is like God is dead and we killed him, and there isn't enough water in the oceans to wash away the blood. I mean,
Right.
I think this nihilism that's creeping into our world has to do with like there's nothing bigger than us. There's no hope in the future. Like none of it matters. Like that kind of idea, like I don't matter and none of it matters. So what's the point of all this suffering? And
Right.
people get caught up in that in a big way. Like it is prevalent, but it's
Yeah.
some lie we've all been sold, as far as I can tell. Like,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
and social media does not help with that, especially if you're looking at, well, this person has this wonderful job or they have this massive house and they're the same age as me. Like, where did I mess up? I mean, you're comparing yourself constantly to other people.
right.
You don't go on there with that intention. You just
You
do.
know, you're not wrong, but there's also even the other side of that is, you know, depending on like if you're in a bad place and you go on social media, you might see a bunch of people doing better than you. And then you also
Hmm.
might see a bunch of people suffering. You watch the news and it's
That's
people
true.
suffering, and you're like, wow, like there's a bunch of people living the life I wish I had. And then there's a bunch of people who are suffering. And like this whole thing is kind of, you
Hmm.
know, a sick, dirty joke. And it's, and I can certainly understand how that happens. I have like a very different philosophy. Like I take, I don't know, I'm starting to realize, and this is, if you can mind a quick tangent here. I
Go
have a
for it.
neighbor I lived next to for 20 years, and she was into bird watching. And I was the other day I was watching birds, and I was like, wow, I'm watching birds. Like, who am I now? And it's funny when you see my social media videos, I'm always in the backyard. I'm like looking around like this, and it's because I got just all these crazy. And I realized I was like, oh, this means you made it. Like this is the moment you know you made it, because you think of the vacations, the weddings, these things, they're very fleeting. They're once a year. You're
Yeah.
planning them, then they show up. The day flies by, and then it's done. So it's like, okay, what do you do for the 51 other weeks of the year? And
Hmm.
I'm like, by the moment you can be still and you can just appreciate that really gentle, subtle beauty of like the brightest red cardinal you've ever seen. And you're like, holy hell, like, how did God make that thing? And like, wow. Like the moment you
Right.
can have that quietness, you're like, oh, like this is peace, like this is beauty, this is kind of being part of everything. And I was like, wow, I understand my neighbor. Like she has this peace in her soul that everyone in the world is looking for. And it's available to everyone, but it's so obvious and so commonplace and right in plain sight that it's
Mhm.
invisible.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I talked in email. You even said the little things of like having dinner with your wife or just hanging out with your kids, like things
Yeah.
that people probably are actually indulging in, like going out and hanging out with their friends. I mean, it's like my friend that passed, he was the party person. He
Mm.
was the party guy. He came in, he and everyone was out having a great time.
Like Robin
And
Williams
so
type character or something.
yes, and they actually just compared him at the funeral to Robin Williams, and I was like, yep,
Okay.
that was true. That
Yeah.
but but yeah, no, he it's that kind of thing where you have all this stuff around you and all these people around you, and for some reason there is that blockage, or like maybe the
Mm.
blinders where you're just like, I don't see that. I,
Yeah.
especially even if you have dinner with your wife all the time, and then you're just like, wow, I just, feel like nothing's going good for me, and your people around you are like, what about me?
Yeah. Be like, hey, like that's actually very insulting to me. Like
Yeah,
I'm sitting right here with you.
right.
No, it's we're like trained to not see it. And I've been thinking about this lately. Like a lot of people, they say they want success and happiness and all these things, but a lot of people really want just the appearance of this.
Hmm.
Like because the actual feeling of success and wealth and happiness might all be very, very subtle from the inside.
Right,
Like it might just look like you're having dinner with your wife and kid,
right.
and like this is peace, this is success, this is amazing. Like I have
Yeah.
these wonderful people I'm sharing my life with who like love me unconditionally, and you know what I mean? But it's not showy enough for most of us, right? Like most of us want to appear like, oh, we're in Miami, we're on the
Hmm.
beach, we got amazing bodies, we're driving Lamborghinis. Like, but
Yeah.
you look at these celebrities and rock stars, and it's like the people who have those things, most of them fall apart.
Hmm.
So it's like people really got to decide like, do you want the appearance of this success or do you want the actual feeling of success?
Right. Well, and I
Yeah.
think the point that I finally got to, like, breaking down my brick wall was,
Mm.
I found the word sonder, which I always love the word perspective, and sonder and perspective go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But it's when you suddenly stop and you take the perspective of someone near you or someone else around you, even if it's a stranger. So like
Mm.
sonder means that there's other people passing you by that have their own story and their own problems, even if it's a
Mhm.
person that's like an extra in the background that you, as a stranger, you'll never see again. You have no idea what they're going through.
Right.
And to put yourself into someone else's perspective like that and get out of your own head, like even like you said, getting out of your head and just looking at a cardinal, you just got to get out of your
Right.
head. You got to look at the stuff around you.
Yeah. For anyone listening, there's very, very practical advice. Like if you're nervous in social situations, like I hate public speaking. And it's funny. I have a podcast now and I'm doing the social media thing. Cause like, honestly, I would have rather fought in like the Coliseum than like
Hmm.
give a speech in high school. Like I'm like, give me a
Right.
sword and a lion versus let me, go in front of these people. But you got to face your fears and do things that aren't dangerous but scare the hell out of you, and that makes you better. It's a good thing to do. Um, if you're nervous in social situations, it's because you're thinking about yourself too much.
Hmm.
Like you're thinking about how am I appearing? What am I going to say? This and that.
Yeah.
If you think about the people in the room and it's like, it's not about me, it's about them. And like,
Hmm.
I'm genuinely interested in who are they and, what do they like to do? What are their names? This and that. You will be way less nervous and much more interesting. So, as a practical tip, but if you genuinely are interested in other people, that'll come more naturally than like, oh, let me remember to think about other people. Like, just genuinely be interested. As a side note, I love that word. And I learned it when we did our other podcast. It was the first time I ever heard
Yeah.
that word.
Yeah.
But how do you practically like apply that in your life when you're like coming across people?
Um, I think I kind of do physically put myself, it's kind of like method acting. I physically put my mental self in someone else's shoes. So like
Mm,
I'll sit there and see where someone's going through a situation. Oh, how about even just this tragedy? Because that's pretty recent. I was
right.
trying to put myself in his shoes and trying to understand what happened, why it happened. Can we prevent this from anyone else having these feelings and doing this? And then obviously I don't have the answers. Probably will never have the answers, but just
Mm,
trying to understand um me, like his perspective, and then my friends that are affected more,
right.
and how I can help them if I can. I might not be able to because it's one of those things that again we won't have the answers. So just trying really hard to get in their heads.
Right. And it's also, yeah, that's tough because it's not clear what people need too, right? Like, so like
Yeah.
one thing I know for sure is like we'll never know the full ripples of like any good we do. Like I know for sure that no good deed's ever wasted, right? But in terms of like, okay, helping people, it's like, what do they need? So like for your friends, I feel like making yourself available and checking in is about the
Right.
best, or like at least knowing that like this pain is shared, right? It's like none of us
Yeah.
are alone in this feeling like, hey, everyone who's at this funeral is here because they cared about this person. We're all grieving
Yeah.
together, and we should come together and tell stories and talk about this person, keep their memory alive, and really honor the best of them. Like I have no doubt that when people die, they're in a better place. And like sometimes I dream about like, like my grandparents and stuff, and I see them like fully restored. They're like
Hmm.
youthful and glowing and immaculate clothing, and there's no more pain, and like the suffering is really the people who are alive missing that person. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Well, and that's
Um,
actually exactly what the pastor said yesterday too, is he said, don't just let this like stop you where you're at. Enjoy the stories, share the stories. There's tons of
mhm,
stories that you guys probably have never heard of. And
mhm.
enjoy the life that he had while he was here. And I was like, yeah, you're right. That sounds
I mean,
better than being sad.
there's so much beauty, right? Like even in a tragic story, there are these moments of profound beauty, and
Mm.
there's stories that ought to be told. Um,
Yeah.
Let me ask you, did anyone kind of see it coming at all?
No, not at all. Again, it's like a Robin Williams scene where it was he had on this mask for a very long time of
Yeah,
everything's great, and he just always was laughing. He made all the jokes. He always was smiling. Best hugs. I mean,
right.
he checked all the boxes. So yeah.
That's such a difficult thing. I know, and I've heard this for sure, is like, okay, let's say someone's dealing with like major clinical depression or something. Um, what they need is to like reach out to somebody, but like that's just something that does not come naturally when you're in that place, is
Right.
reaching out to someone and saying like, hey, can you talk, or I need help. So it's almost like, God, it's like if you don't hear from someone for a while, you're like, oh, that's strange, I haven't heard from them for a little bit. Like,
Mhm.
where are they at, how are they feeling? And just having this like gut instinct to like, reach out to them. And it's something I've even experimented with in prayers, that like, hey, God, if there's someone in my world who's in a bad way, like just
Mhm.
give me like a gut feeling to give them a call or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I don't know
Yeah.
what else we can do. Yeah.
Well, and I even told my husband, when we first got married, I went into a deep depression. It just got triggered a bunch of different changes. And
Mm,
I actually had no idea I was even into depression until I came out of it. And so
really?
he felt really bad, and he was like, I didn't even know that you were, sad or depressed or anything. And I was like, me
Right.
either. So, and he's like, I couldn't have helped. I'm like, I wouldn't have known to ask you for help. It's a very weird thing and to be in that mindset.
Yeah, it's like not obvious what you need, or that. And it's so tough, and depression is tricky too, because for some people they're depressed because things just aren't coming together, or like life is very, very difficult. Some people, there is a chemical element, and I don't know if like SSRIs is the thing to do, or like even like almost a deep dive genetic study to be like, hey, my body can't absorb this vitamin. I mean, literally it could be something like that. And,
Right.
and that's not to insult anyone and diminish anyone, because like the feelings are very real, like the suffering is very real. But it is possible
Mhm.
that there is even, potentially a nutritional element. I mean, but sometimes I've had, not depressant, but like sometimes like a certain day, and that sadness is motivating to me to go look elsewhere. And sometimes I feel like I'm depressed because I'm not on the right path, or I'm not aligned with my dream or what I'm supposed to be doing. And sometimes it feels like it's supposed to be there, because if everything's good, you don't shift. You know what I mean? And
Right.
yeah.
Well, and I still have definitely days where I'm just like, oh my, I have a newborn and I just lost a friend. So yeah, there's a few days recently where I'm like,
uh,
I just want to lay on a bed. So, and like
yeah,
not
like
talk to
it's,
anyone, stare at the ceiling. And I think those are still healthy. Crying is still very healthy,
right.
because that also chemically releases stuff.
Mhm.
So there's all of that, but also like sometimes when I'm feeling those ways and I'm like, maybe I'm starting to get a little depressed, especially when I was pregnant and now postpartum and all that. Then I
Mhm.
sit there and think, why am I thinking this? And then I
Mhm.
kind of dive deeper into that, which is hard to do. And it's probably one of those things that if you haven't done it before, you want to talk to a professional. But to
Mhm.
do that, to dive deeper of like, okay, I'm thinking of something I did in high school. Why am I still carrying that? Like that's
Right.
forever ago. Just let it
Right.
go.
Right.
And then I can move on with my day.
No, you make actually an amazing point. Like one of the things that we're taught to do is to avoid that discomfort, whether it's
Hmm.
through laughing and pretending everything's fine and joking and being social and like the Robin Williams thing. And kind of sounds like that's kind of how your friend was. Some people turn to alcohol, gambling, drugs, sex, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
or just television and just distracting themselves. But I actually think sometimes the best thing to do is to look at that discomfort and take it down a
Hmm.
level and like almost like like try to treat yourself the way you treat your best friend. Like if your best friend came to you with the same thoughts, you'd be like, okay, let's dig into that. Where does that come from? You go down a
Right.
layer. Okay, and where does that come from? And you get to the bottom of it, and it's almost like sometimes that unconscious, subconscious mind just wants to be heard, and it's so
Yeah.
powerful because you're ignoring it, not because it's this great monster, but it's this big paper tiger that you've been running away from versus
Yeah.
like, okay, let's look at the man behind the curtain here.
Well, and it can go all the way down to childhood healing or child healing on the inside.
Right.
There's always a joke in the movies where the therapist is like, "Tell me about your childhood," and people are like, "Why?" But that's actually a thing. Is like there is a lot of deep rooted stuff that can happen in the childhood that affects you
Mm.
as an adult, and you won't realize until you do that digging and keep going further down.
Right. Cause I mean, I try to give parents grace, right? Because being a parent is very difficult. And like our children think we have it all figured out and
Right.
we don't. And now that
Yeah.
we have kids, we're looking at our parents and we're like, oh, we thought you all had the answers. And like you were
Yes.
just big kids raising kids without a manual. And like you didn't get everything right. So like we all take things from our childhood. And I want to give my own parents grace. But the thing is, there's things you carry that aren't true
Right.
that you were just raised with, that you just have been, it's a program you've been running for so long, not even realizing you're running a program. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. Well, and I also have I have like a self-help book. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it, but it was going to go along
Nice.
with Mindscape. And one of the things that I think I got it in a dream, or maybe God gave it to me, it just popped in my head. But
Mhm.
when you have a splinter, it's kind of like a trauma or something that's been stuck with you, and you can leave it in your arm or your finger, and you can totally ignore it, but it's going to hurt and it's going to keep
Right.
affecting you. It
Right.
could get infected, could get worse. And then when you do try to go and get that splinter, sometimes you have to dig even deeper, especially if you've let it heal over a little bit. You have to dig and it's going
Mm.
to hurt more. But as soon as you get the splinter out, it can heal. And I don't know about you, but anytime I get the splinter out, I immediately feel better. So, but
Right.
then it's
Right. But
able to heal.
digging it out is painful, but
And
getting it out is essential.
yes, and that could be traumas. That could just be just thinking of something that happened as a child or anything.
You just reminded me, there's a guy, I have this theory that people sometimes identify with their illness. So I
Mm-hmm.
knew a guy, worked with him, who had a bad shoulder for 30 years. And one day I looked at him because he was always complaining about his shoulder. It was like, oh, it's raining outside. Oh, my shoulder hurts, this and that. Oh, I need surgery, this and that. I was like, okay, maybe all that's true. But I was like, how the hell does a woman's body grow an entire human being in 9 months, but your shoulder can't fix itself in 30 years? And I'm like,
Hmm.
I do think people identify with their brokenness, their diseases. And there's even like biblical reference. It was like Jesus was helping a man who was trying to get into the well, and it was like the first man to get in could be healed. And he was
Yes.
always last because he was like, he couldn't walk. And they didn't even know his name. They just referred to him as, the cripple or something. And I more remember the gist of the story than the exact details, but people can identify with their brokenness. And I'm like, you are so much more than any one
Yeah.
label. Like a name is just a convenient way to refer to you, but like you are so much more than Lynn, and I am so much
Yeah.
more than Greg. And like, I'm not, don't put yourself in a little box. Like you are a lot of things at once.
Right. Well, no, and that's a sad thing I see a lot nowadays with, like you said, with the pills and people put on antidepressants and stuff, and or they're
Mm.
diagnosed with something. And yes, there is absolutely could be a chemical thing, and you might want to get something that can help balance that out. That totally is a
Right.
thing. But there is a lot of times where people are like, "Oh, I just have this. That's just who I am,"
Right.
and they're not willing to understand, like, okay, but once you get those chemical balanced, you don't have to be that. You don't have to be in pain mentally or physically. You can
Right.
go through it.
No, people like identify like, oh, I have ADHD, like, oh, I have anxiousness. And it was like,
Yeah.
okay, like, are you sure? Like, maybe the anxiousness means like, hey, I need to just sober up and meditate. Like, maybe I
Yeah.
just drink too much. And the ADHD is like more like, oh, maybe I just learned by working with my hands and doing things versus sitting with a book. And it's like,
Yeah.
you might not be sick. And I do think medically, I have a philosophy that the body wants to be in balance. Like the
Mhm.
body doesn't want to be broken, doesn't want to be unhealthy, doesn't want to be like, it wants to be in balance. And the only reason it isn't is because you're taking in toxic, I mean,
Everything.
chemicals,
Yeah.
thoughts. I mean, everything. You're taking in
Yeah.
toxic news, you're taking in toxic plastics and pesticides. And then maybe there's nutrients that are just missing from the mix. But it's like there's something holding your body and your mind back from balance. But like balance is what they want. That is their natural state, not brokenness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all the way back to what you were saying before with the go, go, go
Mm,
aspect of we are all in this like go, go, go. We have jobs, we have kids, we have, I mean, we're the convenient foods are usually the ones that are full of all the toxics and plastics and everything. And
right.
so we have to really try to find those moments of sitting outside and looking at birds or just watching a sunset or anything, having
Right.
dinner with your wife, just like find those little times to just sit and be still and
Yeah.
not try to absorb everything that's go, 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 go.
One of these things is like every day I'll take my dog for like a 15-minute walk and like no phone, nothing. And it's just like a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of meditation, connecting with my dog outside, no distractions, and just pure presentness. Like one of these things, and Eckhart Tolle talks about this a lot, is like there's no suffering in the present. Like all of your suffering, unless you're like in physical agonizing pain and you broke your femur, like there's no suffering in the present. Like all the suffering is like, God, I screwed up when I was 18, or like, God, I'm worried about this bill next month, or like, how am I going to get from here to there? But like right now, you're good. Like if you're watching this podcast right now, it means that you have a phone, you've got a computer, you're not in
Yeah.
mortal danger. Like you're okay right now. Like whatever's making you
Yeah.
anxious, it doesn't exist. It's all hypothetical. It's behind you, it's ahead of you, it might or might not even be around you, but like you're good. And we miss
Yeah.
that. Like
I've
we
even
are
heard,
we are not present. Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, you're good. As I say, I've even heard it all the way down to, did you wake up breathing this morning? Like,
Mm,
even if you think like, but you woke up today.
right.
That's a pretty big one.
It's a
A lot of
gift.
people
It's
have
a
it.
gift.
Yeah.
I'll say one of these things I've been, and I do want to talk to you more off the record about this whole manifestation thing, is we're both
Mm.
on that
Yeah.
as Christians that we're like, and I do believe, I really do believe this 100% that like all of us, what we're experiencing today is the result of everything we believed yesterday and a month ago and a year ago.
Mhm.
Like where you are now is a direct result of what you believe about your life and about the world and your relationship to it. So with that being said, you're manifesting all the time. It's not just, oh, I'm manifesting a new house. I'm like, no, no, you're also manifesting whatever situation you're in at this moment, kind of thing. And I really do believe that. I want to
Yeah.
dig into that a little bit. And I got in the weeds a second there, but one of these things I've been doing that I think is amazing. And I mean, it's been very, very good for me personally because I have big ambitions, right? And it's like, and you can get so caught up in what you want that you miss where you are. So one of these things is every morning before I check my phone, I'm writing down 10 things I'm grateful for. And I'm like
Mm.
orienting myself toward all the ways that like, God, I'm like already so blessed. Like to have an
Yeah.
amazing spouse, to have healthy kids, to have a warm home, like I mean, to wake up and not feel sick. I mean, all these
Mhm.
things like big and small, and orient my mind toward that instead of like all the things I want and perceive I don't have, which is kind
Yeah.
of what we're all trained to do as consumers, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Are you big on journaling
I,
or anything?
um, I need to be more, well, I don't know. I guess I am. I have sat down and manifested with my husband. We've literally sat down and like played some just calming music and wrote down things that we want and things that
Nice.
we're grateful for. Um, and then one of the things I love doing is writing down goals that I would like to have because I love coming back to those later and being like, that's
Check it
done.
off the
Like seeing
list.
the, yeah. Well, and then I
Yeah.
just feel like that looked like a huge mountain before, and you look back at it and you're like, that wasn't that big a deal. And I
Right.
told
I
myself
was
that
just
during
in.
labor sometimes. I was like, I'm gonna get through this and won't be that big a deal.
Right.
Now it's not that big a deal. Before I was like freaking out.
Right. But now you're through it and you're like, you know what? We're good. We're good.
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
There is biblical reference. Jesus said something that was like, if two of you agree, it will be done. And I
Yeah.
do feel like it's like whatever you and your spouse agree on is going to happen. Like you individually, sometimes it's
Hmm.
hit or miss if you can achieve something. But like whatever
Right.
you and your spouse agree on, you're like, okay, we're going to start a family. We're going to get married. We're going to buy a house. We're going to do this. It's like, oh, we did all those
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Right. Well, and me, Anthony, and May, we're much into this stuff too. And so we've talked
Mhm.
about like a lot of spiritual manifestations and all that. And
Mhm.
so we really got into the mindset of saying when we become successful authors, not
Hey,
if, because we were saying that at first, and I don't remember when it switched, but I was like, when we become. And so we had to
yes.
keep checking each other for that. And that mindset in general, even if it never happens, which whatever, but
Mhm.
having that mindset of like, there's a possibility and I'm going to keep pushing and I'm going to
Mm.
keep doing what I like to do and just see where it takes us.
No, I love that. And it is important to not reinforce any limiting beliefs that like, oh, if or yeah, like,
Hmm.
and or even making things feel very far off, right? Like an author, for like you and I might have this sense that like, oh, to be a best-selling author, like it's going to be
Hmm.
no sooner than 5 years from today. And
Right.
like, well, why the hell does it have to be like that? I mean, like literally one person tomorrow who has a very significant influence could make a video about your book or my book. And then
Hmm.
within 2 weeks, it could be a New York Times bestseller at any given moment. That is
Oh
a
yeah.
possibility, right? So like stop putting things way far out as if like that is the way it has to be. Like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
No, I think
those
my
limiting
husband has
beliefs.
actually, I would
Go
say,
ahead.
I think my husband's actually, sorry. He would always say it's gonna be the most random video. Like you said, it's gonna be the most random thing that takes off. Or one of the books that we're like, just threw it out there. That will be the one that takes off. And we'll be like, you know what? Whatever.
No,
Whatever happens.
100%, 100%. And that's one of these big things in manifestation is like, forget the how. Like, what's tripping people
Yeah.
up is thinking that like you're going to control the method by which something takes place. And a
Right.
quick quote from, I think I'm pretty sure it was President Eisenhower, but I love this. He says, planning is essential, but plans are worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is absolutely correct, right? Like things are
That's
going
it.
to come together. They are, but it's certainly not going to be in the way you predicted or expected. But it is very
Yeah.
important that you're like orienting yourself to the landscape of the situation. And you're making plans, but definitely don't lean on them as if this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of how my TikTok is. If you look at my page or our
Mm,
page, it is all over the place. And that's because I'm going with the flow of like when things come to me. So like when I have authors send me books or I buy
right.
books and when I get a chance to do the reviews and blah blah blah. And after a while I'm like, I should probably do a video about my own books too. But but I just go with the flow of it because who knows, like you said, it could be one of those that I review someone's book and then they're inspired and they get one of ours and then their video is the one that takes off. We don't know.
You never know. Hey, Zoom is
Yeah.
about to kick us out in a minute. This was the fastest 40 minutes, I think, to date so far. But Lynn Taylor, you're an amazing author. I'm going to put all your links in the description, all your books. Definitely check her out. She is an outstanding author, deep thinker, amazing friend. Definitely follow her, give her support, and we will see you all next time.
All right.
Wonderful.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thank you for coming on the show.
All right. Talk to you later.